I can go first. I'll introduce this.
Okay. Started.
Yeah. So this is Load in the Loop with Yvonne and Eric. I am CEO and co-founder of Mage Mojo, Magento Hosting. We specialize in hosting for Magento on AWS, and we run into a
And
lot of good.
sorry.
And we run
Okay.
into a lot of performance issues. So that's why we have Yvonne here, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ivan. I'm running performance consultancy as independent consultant with my own BV in the Netherlands. Work a lot with merchants and solution partners, and also I run into a lot of performance issues, not only in a custom code built by others, but also a lot of performance issues in Magento core itself. And this show is going to be more about performance and about the issues we face and how actually to fix them. So it's going to be a little bit of fun and a little bit of educational material for everyone. So I hope everyone going to enjoy it. So
Cool.
Eric, can you tell me a little bit about the project we're going to review today?
Yeah, so we have this M1 site, Fireplace Stores, and it's a customer of ours. And what we've been seeing is they are running into slow site issues. And the slow site, when we look at it, we see a lot of long running PHP FPM processes. And when we attach to those and we S-trace them, it looks like it's just core URL rewrite over and over and over and over and over and over, which looks like a load in the loop.
So far, I was already browsing this website, and actually I already found the load in a loop, but let's just explain a little bit the process, how we go through it, right? So first of all, we try to profile every single page we see, and let's start with the homepage. Here we see there's actually a lot of brands listed and models of the fireplaces, as far as I understand. I'm not a good at fireplace products, but looks like um, business-oriented website like B2B, right? Or something similar. Like it's very simple. It has nothing to do with presenting product with pictures and so on. It's more kind of for people who know their job and just finding products by parts numbers, right? Okay, so we actually got a very nice sponsorship by Blackfire, so big shout out to them. They provide us licenses to be able to profile your stores live here on show and give you valuable advices. So thanks to Blackfire, and we are right now using Blackfire in order to find issues on this customer's website. So let's start with profiling, right? So I'm gonna profile a homepage, and when you start profiling, right, you already can see if it's fast page or not. Here we see it's incredibly fast because Blackfire usually runs kind of 10 iterations, and then it gives you an average profile results based on 10 iterations. And in this case, we see that, yeah, it's very fast. It's on average half a second to render a homepage. That is a good result. There is nothing actually to see here in the profile. So let's go further on. So let's just click on any of the links here on the homepage with brands. So I'm gonna go into this one. Yeah, seems also like a simple page. Let's just run a profiler really quick.
It's loading pretty fast. It's
Yeah, it's
definitely cache is on.
looks like cache has nothing to do here because as far as I see, if there would be a full page cache on or something like that, we would see less database queries. Here is 77 database queries, and it's a good result for average category page. So I have a feeling like, yeah, this is just page without much of the data. If this customer would sell configurable products, we could see much more database queries here because configurable products are very prone to load in loops. So Here, here we have also I see some kind of a drop down. Let's analyze this one a little bit and see. Oh, it's hard to get a click over here. Okay, so here I see there is kind of brands, so you can select the brand, and then we see there is two last items that give me a little bit of hope that we can find some performance there.
Yeah, complete model listing. Yeah, that looks like a lot. Or in
Yeah,
stock,
so
checking stock.
yeah, so in stock fireplace parts and fireplace parts complete model listing. Let's start with in stock fireplace parts. Let's see what's going on that page. Okay, so it lists quite a few products. Let's run a profile here and let's see what it's gonna show us. And I'm gonna grab some sip of the coffee.
Yeah, this might take a
So,
little bit.
so I see we even didn't hit the first request. So you remember homepage, like it was like one after one after one after one, and here we have to wait a couple of seconds. So it's an indication that there is something happening over there.
How much overhead does Blackfire add in this profiling, and does it
Uh,
exclude that when we look at results?
no, unfortunately not. So usually I would say it's something like 50% because Blackfire needs to um, put hooks on every single method, function, IO call, and so on in order to know how much time it took. And in order to create a report, how many times this particular method has been called or this particular function has been called, what kind of database query was running, and so on. So it takes a lot of time to do it for Blackfire. So usually it's kind of doubles the execution time. So the numbers that you see actually in Blackfire, you can just divide them by 2, and then you get more or less reasonable result. And in case if you just want to know the actual uncached result, you can open always debug tools in your browser and check what is the waiting time of the response from the server. It would be the best indication of how much time it took to render your page. So here we see like it takes 7 seconds. What is interesting, I was expecting actually to see here a lot of database queries.
Yeah.
But here, right, it looks very suspicious because there is actually only 77 database queries. There is nothing happening on IO side as well. So let's analyze here. So here we see that peak memory used, this is 16 megabytes, almost nothing. So CPU time is actually the biggest time here. And here we see that probably there is some kind of CPU bound process that happens on this particular customer website, right? So,
Yeah.
well, what can we really tell from this result, right? We cannot tell anything unless we actually dive deep into the code. What I really like in Blackfire is that it actually can tell you the piece of the part of the page that actually slows you down a lot because they have this amazing view called timeline. And in timeline, you can go into a complete rendering process. It shows you actually kind of like a waterfall of every single PHP function that gets executed. So here, right away, right out of the bat, I see that this customer has not disabled session locking in Redis. So here
That's
I
the
see,
use sleep.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a usleep. And this is actually exclusive time of the usleep. So it adds at least 1.4 seconds, right, on his page.
Can you
And
talk a little bit about that? What is that use sleep in the Redis session?
yeah,
So
so
it's trying to get a lock?
yeah, so it's trying to get a lock. It's actually a very bad lock implementation because you sleep will put your process to sleep. And if you have a lot of concurrent processes, you actually not eliminating any kind of rest condition possibilities by you sleeping because you are just expect that somewhere in the future you will wake up and the lock will be gone so you can proceed with a request, And in this case, we see that it sleeps at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So 5 times you sleep, it means that process was checking 5 times if the lock was released. And only on the fifth time, it didn't see any lock, and it was able actually to get the data from Redis session. However, logs itself are redundant on reading the data from session storage, because when you write into a session storage, it's an atomic operation because it's only one key
Yeah.
itself, and locking over there and checking for possibility of the lock is completely redundant. So
Is
I usually always disable session logs on Redis.
Yeah. So that's a change you can make on the Redis side to disable the locks.
It's Magento. I think it's Magento 1, right? So in Magento 1, it's app-atc local.xml. So when you configure Redis, you have one of those flags, and one of those flags is actually disable locking.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, so you can put it over there. And another one that stands out a lot, we can see its huge green bar here in the bottom, right? It takes another 6 seconds. And this is Mage review, model review, append summary. And here, where I usually, as reviewer of the websites that have performance issues, need to get an access to the core code, or to the code that actually I see here that gets executed. So for instance, if it would be a custom functionality that was built on his website, I would get contact with the customer and get the complete code base with all the extensions installed, everything, in order to be able to look at the code and see what actually happening over there, because Blackfire only gives us hints. And the actual problem, you need to dive deep and analyze more. And here, for instance, we see that it's actually a core functionality of Magento. In Magento 1, actually, that produces a huge performance bottleneck. It's called append summary. So we can just go online. Let's say we can go into GitHub. And there is this nice open Mage project, I think, right? And we can go
Yep.
into Magento Mirror. We can go into particular modules that is an interest for us. So I'm gonna go into the review. Again, what was it? It was model review. Okay, so it was model review, right? And what we can go here, we can go into this append summary. So let's take a look at this one. So if we read through this code, what stands out here, right? So it receives a collection, and this is a collection of products, as we see from the method signature. So this collection of products is used in order to collect all the IDs of products that might have reviews being loaded additionally for this item. Then if there is no products in collection, then it just returns reasonable. And then if there are some products, it actually adds an entity IDs as a filter for retrieving data from another collection called review summary collection. So this one contains a summary of the review, like the rating of the product and total number of reviews and so on. And here we can see that, yeah, it also adds a store filter and then loads it. And then it walks through this collection of products. Okay, so here I see there's very small amount of IO operation. You see it's only 227 nanoseconds, so it's very small. So this is probably only 2 database queries that are happening over there. And these 2 database queries, it's actually our load of the product collection and load of the summary collection, most probably. And here, then we can see that there is actually a nested for each. And what I mean about nested for each, I mean that there is one collection gets iterated through, And then inside of it, you actually iterate through another collection of the data, right? You see here, there's actually 2 for each statements. And this is already a big red sign, because if we take a look at big O notation, it's kind of standard for mathematicians and computer scientists to explain complexity of an algorithm. And in this case, this kind of 2 loops, in order to find particular data based on data in these 2 loops, is called brute force search. So brute force search, it's when you actually visit every single item from one collection of data and every single item from another collection of data in order to find if these 2 items are related to each other. So this is called brute force. And this brute force approach is actually what's causing the slowdown for this customer, right? So the problem here is that Magento core code in this particular area actually does 2 nested iterations. And these 2 nested iterations are completely redundant because of one single reason. Let's try to actually edit a file and just show what the real implementation should look like, because yeah, we can't edit the core, but we can do it for educational purpose, right? To explain how you actually can fix this problem very easily and very simply. So the customer probably would have to override this model in order to fix this performance bottleneck. So here we have a collection of products. But what's interesting in this case, we're actually not interested into iterating all the products, because we anyway have to assign only by this entity pk value a value to the product if there is some data available for it. So what I can do, I can actually remove this loop completely. And when I'm doing it, then I only iterate through available summaries of the reviews. So if there is a review, we're gonna assign it to product. If there is no review, we just don't do anything. So we just not iterating, not doing any additional redundant work. And here, Magento core collection actually has already a very nice method we can use. So we can use here, instead of this condition, we can create another one. We can say that item equals collection get item by ID. And this get item by ID will use a hash map inside of the Magento product collection in order to find product by ID. So here we just specify this summary get pk yeah, it's entity pk value. Okay, so this is the name of the method. So here is actually a very simple fix for this functionality. So we check if we get an item by ID, and if we get an item by ID, we just set to this item this rating summary. And just applying this very simple change would remove a lot of time from this rendering. So I don't want to actually run this 10 times iteration profile for this page, because I already know it's going to take a while, and probably it's going to take the rest of the recording if we just run it, let it run 10 times. So I'm going to use a feature here in Blackfire called disable aggregation. This would allow me to run a profile only once instead of 10 times. So let's wait till it finishes running, and let's go back to the code and discuss it a little bit. So, and here's the code that we actually modified. So we just walk through the summary if it exists. If it doesn't exist, we don't do anything, as this one was doing already. It was just iterating through all the products and then iterating through all the summaries. So basically, even if there were no summaries to deal with, Magento was still iterating through every single product anyway in this specific method. And here, right, we can see that we just replace this iteration with simple lookup by hash map, and then we just set a rating summary to an item itself. So this one would replace this brute force lookup or search by actual big O notation ON. So it will only execute a number of times the number of items we have in original collection, because hash map lookup is O1. So it means the complexity is very low. And the brute force lookup has a complexity of big O n in power of m. So where n is number of one collection and m is number of other collection. And it means that we actually have an exponential number of time with the number of data we have bigger number of iterations and operations we have to perform. So that's why it's called brute force search. Let's take a look. Is it finished? Yeah, so here we can see that, yeah, the time is actually exponential because we just increased the data set a little bit, but it's already like 3 times more, right? From point of view of CPU time. And yeah, here are all products. We can see it has this timeline here, and let's see what's happening here. Yeah, now we see that this append summary actually takes most of the time. So before in this profile, right, it was taking 5 seconds, and here it takes all 28 seconds in order to render this page. So I can tell for sure that this customer of yours will be very happy by not paying too much in future for his all product category page, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like there is some merit why no one actually noticed this issue before in Magento Core. So it's kind of unusual when you actually show all of your catalog on a single category page.
Yeah, I'm also curious why they're calling the append summary. Um, it looks like it's just a link. Do they even really need to be calling append summary? That's a review summary, right?
Yeah, it's just a standard Magento behavior. So when you are on a category page and when you load list of the products,
Oh.
and you have Magento review module enabled, then Magento tries to add a review item to every single product you have in
Got it.
in your collection. And with the case of this customer, unfortunately, he has too many products, and yes, there is not much database operations because majority of the issues I deal with is when actually someone calls a database query for every single product of every single configurable assigned to it. So this is very interesting problem was actually to find. So thank you very much for this very nice use case, because
Yeah.
I was really surprised and with my open eyes when I saw actually this number of database queries, because for me, like 30 seconds and you have only 75 database queries. Yeah, what's going on there? And actually spotting this issue in the core code was a very nice exercise.
Is there anything out there already to override? Like, I'm surprised nobody's like created an extension or something that would optimize that.
Yeah, it sounds like not a lot of people actually facing this issue, because not
Yeah,
much
he's
merchants actually showing all the catalog on one
80,000
single category.
products on a
Yeah,
category page. Yeah.
yeah. So I, I would even say like 30 seconds. It's probably a good result for this kind of number of products. So yeah, in general, uh, yeah. How much nodes have this customer to actually bootstrap in order to support bots to browse their website?
Oh yeah, we've had to auto scale it, and they're not even the traffic's very low, and it's hit triggering auto scaling. So on Stratus we pay for that, so the customer just pays per Google Analytics session, and Google does a good job filtering out bots. But our
So
team
so
still has to restart PHP FBM for them once in a while because it gets hung.
yeah,
So
so basically, yeah, it's very interesting. So you actually don't make any money with this customer, right?
no, no, and the customer gets upset too because they come to us and they say, "Well, why isn't what's wrong with the server? Why isn't the server working right? Why something must be wrong on the server?" And we're like, "Well, I don't think so. Everything
Yeah,
looks good."
yeah,
We're just seeing a lot of looping stuff.
it's very interesting thing, like I all the time get surprised when customer actually decide to migrate from one hosting to another, just because the minuscule of the difference between performance, because maybe there is some different MySQL configuration or Redis configuration, but usually like migrating from one hosting to another doesn't make sense unless you try to optimize your software, because if your
Yeah,
application is slow, if your application doing these stupid things like we just saw, right?
it comes down to support. Yeah, you
Yeah,
got to have a good
no,
relationship with the
no,
host.
no matter what kind of hosting you have. Maybe, yeah, if you migrate to AWS with the most recent CPUs, maybe it will be a little bit faster. But yeah, why would you pay for these CPU cycles anyway if you can actually make a much more efficient algorithm?
I think a lot of customers can't figure that out. They don't have the knowledge between the server and the code. So they look at the code and they don't like they see that, but they don't like, for example, our team will connect with strace, and I don't know any other host that'll do that. They'll actually go into the code and say it's this file, it's this line number. Our team will attach strace to the
Hmm.
PHP FPM process and profile it, and they say, oh yeah, there's definitely something looping going on here. So then our team would continue investigating it until they figured it out. But now that we have this podcast, we can pull out these examples that we would normally do, and that's the main reason people change hosts, is because of the deep level of Magento knowledge. They kind of keep hopping from one host to the next until they hit one that has the tools and the team and the time to put into it to help them understand how that's hitting the server, because the developers themselves usually don't get that kind of deep level of understanding of the server, where the
Yeah,
server meets the code or the rubber meets the road.
yeah. What I see as a problem in general in developers, like a lot of developers thinking in point of view of objects. So no one thinks about the actual service layer itself and what data you need in order to render this part of page. They think, hey, which object I need to grab from Magento in order to render this part of the page, and then they end up actually looping through a lot of objects
Yeah,
where they only need, let's say, only one property out of that object. Like no one thinks about, hey, if I need only one property of the object, maybe I don't need to have that object. Maybe I have to create another service model that will do a lightweight query with number of IDs of the entity I'm trying to get data from. You know,
yeah,
it's always kind of finding a balance, and I'm really surprised that not that much people actually pay attention to this kind of problems.
yeah.
I've met so many different solution partners, and I was working also a lot of with merchants. And when merchant come to me and tell me, "Hey, can you please help us out with the performance?" I try to make it as much as possible clear to session solution providers that they're using how to actually avoid those issues in future. So
You do
after
training,
I
right? You do on-site
yeah,
training.
I do on-site trainings for solution providers, but when I get hired by merchant usually don't want to pay for training of solution provider. But I anyway try to at least have 1-2 hour meeting after performance audit with possible fixes that I apply for
So
a merchant website in order to explain them what actually I found, how I found it, how I use those tools, and how they should avoid those issues in the future. Because I don't want to be a person solving stupid performance issues. I want to work on more complex solutions, create some nice asynchronous services, like build microservices that perform very well. I don't want to go in to merchant website and fixing all those load and loops. I want to see less of those in our ecosystem.
Hmm. So do you work with agencies then? You'll go on site and do training with their developers to try to.
Yeah. The most recent one was Imagination Media in Florida. It was a very nice trip. Just right after Meet Magenta New York, Ali asked me to come over and help them out with one of the merchants. And we had actually a week of on-site performance optimization. So we were doing performance optimizations of one of their customer projects directly with them, and it was interesting because we actually reduced number of database queries that was happening on their Magento 2 store from something like 3,000 to 60.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can imagine, how many extensions we fixed and how many core code we also fixed during
No, that's
during
next. Yeah,
only 1 week. Only 1 week.
yeah,
Like it's crazy because those issues are easy to spot and easy to fix. It's just usually about, hey, here we have to get the data from the index. Here we have to get the data from something, um, maybe from a simple database query we have to do for a list of products, not for every single product. So we just fix those parts. And as well, there is a lot of things that are related to unnecessary HTTP calls as well. Or for instance, a nice use case I think we found with Amasti modules, right? When Amasti modules all the time check their version from a file system by loading Composer JSON file,
oh yeah,
and
wow.
and it's like adding like half a second to the page load time, because Composer validates all the JSON structures, runs a lot of CPU logic over there, and it just terrible. So people just do other things. And for instance, I remember we were also doing something as well with your team. We were doing training
Yeah,
before Meet Magenta New York, and with
yep,
your team, we actually hit one of your customer websites, and it was having some kind of an extension that was just logging its own version number
yeah,
into the log file. But in order to obtain this version number, it was using not a constant. It was using a value from configuration file in module.xml. And this module.xml, when you try to access this information, Magento has to hit uncached version of the configuration. So it has to walk through every single module that is installed in Magento, read this XML file, merge it all together, and
right.
then inside of this big XML structure, it has to pick up this single module and return you back this version number. So sometimes developer never profile own code that they write. So
Yeah,
extension developers just don't care. Like, hey, here's an API. They don't think about what's happening behind that API, and this is a little bit of a problem, because some API have different purpose. For instance, that API for version retrieval of the database, it's meant to be used only during the setup process. So when you're done doing setup upgrade, or where you're doing setup DB status checks, but it's never meant to be used on the front end, because on the front end, you already get updated database. You never compare your versions of the database schema. So it's kind of a thing that just happens to be. and you have to find them and then just outburst on Twitter and tell everyone, "Hey guys, don't do it." But
That's the part of this is to call out the extension vendors, and I know, like you found one extension issue and then found a GitHub report of it from years ago about the issue, and it still hasn't
yeah,
been fixed. So we'll
I think we need to make a little bit of announcement before we close the show, right? So we need to tell people that they can actually submit their stores for review, right?
yes,
Yeah. So guys, if and girls, go and submit your stores. If you are at MageMojo, it's going to be very easy because MageMojo has Blackfire installed. If you are not at MageMojo, we have to do a little bit of migration. Uh,
yeah, we can make a
the
copy here.
the temporary migration to MageMojo in order to be able to profile your website. But if you're already on MageMojo, it's just a matter of minutes in order to start and review your website. So feel free to contact MageMojo, or contact me. Uh, I can forward all the requests to MageMojo.
Yeah. What's your email address, Yvonne?
Oh, it's Ivan at ecomdev.org.
And
So
you can reach us, litl at magemojo.com. Load in the loop, just litil at magemojo.com. If you wanna get reviewed, be happy to do that for you.
yeah, and you always can reach us out on Twitter as well. So it's I think the fastest way to get our attention.
What's your Twitter handle?
The same as my name, Ivan Chepurnyi. But yeah, I think most of the people can find me on Twitter because a lot of people know who I am.
Yeah, you have more followers than I do. That's just my name, Eric V. Hileman uh, at Eric V.
Okay,
Hileman.
so I think it's time to close the show.
Yep.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope everyone liked the show, and till the next time.
Bye.
Bye.